Let's go to Moscow now, where the Kremlin is insisting that public support for President Putin remains very high. Jenny Hill is our correspondent there. Is it possible to accurately gauge public support?
Well, the Kremlin is referring to an opinion poll which was published overnight, which shows that trust in Vladimir Putin has risen amongst the Russian public. 70% or so of Russians trust him and support him. Around about 2/3 of the Russian population support what he's doing in Ukraine. Now, this is interesting because, as you know, Russia is a country which is held in a tight grip by the Kremlin. If you're phoned up by an opinion pollster, you might not want to be giving them your honest opinion. We should also point out that a lot of people here get their information from state television, and state television is not showing the full extent of what is happening in Ukraine. So people may be voicing support for the special military operation of the Kremlin without realizing fully what it is they are supporting. It's worth noting, I think, that protests have continued here. Yet again, arrests yesterday. An independent monitoring group say 300 people were arrested yesterday, detained rather, for having attended anti-war demonstrations. And an online protest organised by a human rights activist here has attracted more than 1 million signatures. So you can gauge that there is a significant amount of concern about the war, a significant amount of concern about Vladimir Putin and his actions. Impossible, of course, to gauge exactly how widespread that is. And in the meantime, the Kremlin is intensifying its information campaign here. Overnight, a radio station, a TV station, have had their websites blocked. The radio station, actually, listeners were listening away last night and suddenly found that programmes just fell off the air and were replaced by a kind of hissing noise. A local newspaper attempted to publish a front page with the headline, "This madness must be stopped." Reportedly, though, its officers received a fairly swift visit from the police, who seized newspapers before they could be fully distributed.
Jenny, you say most people get their information from state television, but I mean, most people under a certain age don't. They get their information from their phones, don't they? So, do you get any sense of what the generational split is from those who just watch Russian state television and those who are able to see what actually is going on?
Yeah, again, it's impossible to quantify, and there are controls on, for example, restrictions on accessing Facebook and Twitter here. But you're quite right, of course, younger people in particular are accessing different sources of information. And people here have told me about rather distressing divisions within family units where the children, the younger people, are getting a much clearer sense of what's happening in Ukraine, but then they're coming up against parents or grandparents who are just watching state television, who support Mr. Putin, and who then accuse the youngsters of being brainwashed by the West. It's a very, very distressing scenario, which my understanding is that this is being repeated in a number of families, not necessarily throughout the country, but it is a phenomenon that people are starting to report.
Yeah.